So yeah, welcome to you all. Um, I'll say a few words, and then we'll sit, and then offer some reflections on the theme, and have some time for dialogue. So there's a song I've been listening to lately. It's performed by this blues guitarist Albert King, performing what I think is a Don Nix song, if you know that realm, and and the lyrics are uh, yeah, everybody wants to laugh, but nobody wants to cry. I say everybody wants to laugh, but nobody wants to cry. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. Everybody wants to hear the truth, but yet everybody wants to tell a lie. I say everybody wants to hear the truth, but they all want to tell a lie. Oh, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. You know, sometimes meditation seems like the most obvious, ordinary thing there is, it's just paying attention to our life. It's that simple, the experience of being awake to our life. It feels very ordinary, but it's also radical. It's also radical. I've just been getting that sense of like, oh yeah, what we're doing when we sit is both super ordinary and totally radical. And it's radical because our our conditioning almost dictates that we basically don't stop clinging, you know. It's not like we sometimes cling. It's it's like this uninterrupted flow of clinging, and we often don't see it because we're so often actually getting what we want. Thank goodness. Yeah, that's a good thing. But meditation is radical in the sense that it is a kind of suspension from the the organizing principles of our life to always be extracting value from experience. And here we're like offering our heart up to the Dharma to become someone, to secure a future, to find our way through the labyrinth of pleasure and pain, to game out samsara, this realm of uncertainty. Yeah. And we're really in a deep way surrendering those agendas, not forever, not for all time, but just for this period of practice. And that is radical. I was thinking about philosopher from several hundred years ago, Kant, this kind of famous moral principle to act in such a way that you treat humanity never merely as a means, but always at the same time as an end. Never merely as a means, but always at the same time as an end. Yeah, never treat another merely as a means. And it struck me that our usual strategies has the effect of really treating each moment as a means to an end. Yeah. That makes sense? Like treating each moment, it's like every moment we're trading for something else. Everything is a means to some other end, but we never arrive, at the end. And so we live in a kind of perpetual motion, defending and securing, scrambling. We treat our moments always as a means, never as an end in itself. Yeah. And in meditation practice, we experiment with ceasing that action. Yeah, to treat each moment as an end in itself. Yeah, not a means. In the same way we treat humans, other beings, as an end in itself, not merely as a means. We treat our moments in this way. We don't have to leverage them to get somewhere or to barter this moment for another. And the practice unfolds through that kind of surrender. Yeah. Mindfulness is cultivated through that kind of surrender. Samadhi is cultivated through that kind of surrender. So I'm happy to be sitting together. Let's sit. So any joy that there is just right now, to have this moment, this breath, maybe that is enough. We settle in this ordinary, radical way. Treating each moment as an end in itself, not something that's a means to somewhere, something else. And so innocent, our bodies and minds, attuned to our security, the habit of leveraging this moment for some future safety, such an innocent habit. And maybe it starts to feel safe enough. Inner life starts to feel safe enough. And we can rest in an undefended way with this breath, this moment, end in itself. It's hard to believe, but you actually don't have to prove anything or be anything. You do not need to extract something from the moment or your practice. We just bless each moment as an end in itself, not a means for something else. Nice to practice with you. So the theme this evening, mindfulness and samadhi, concentration, unification of mind. Um, and they are distinguished, right? There's in the Eightfold Path, there's wise mindfulness and wise concentration. In the factors of enlightenment and the five faculties, they're sati, mindfulness, samadhi, they're separate. They're not one thing. They're distinct enough to be separated, and they are deeply related. And so this is Thanissaro Bhikkhu, translator, monk. Many people tell us the Buddha taught two different types of meditation. Whenever he says many people tell us, that means people who know less than me, kind of. Many people tell us the Buddha taught two different types of meditation, mindfulness meditation and concentration meditation. Mindfulness meditation, they say, is the direct path, while concentration practice is the scenic route that you take at your own risk because it's very easy to get caught there and you may never get out. But when you actually look at what the Buddha taught, he never separates these two practices. They are both parts of a single whole. Every time he explains mindfulness and its place in the path, he makes clear that the purpose of mindfulness practice is to lead the mind into a state of right concentration, to get the mind to settle down and find a place where it can feel really stable, at home, where it can look at things steadily and see them for what they are. So that's one view. Um, and that's really our question for the evening. What do they share? How are they distinct? How are they cultivated? And in all of the enthusiasm for mindfulness or concentration for that matter, we also want to remember something, comment from the Samyutta Nikaya the Buddha made, saying that just as the lion is the ruler of the jungle, wisdom rules over mindfulness and concentration. Yeah. And so we want to be careful about, kind of elevating mindfulness, concentration above everything else or something. It's in service of wisdom, and wisdom will likely understand that as in service of freedom. So we usually start the path like on the first day of a mindfulness based stress reduction or one of these courses. We would define mindfulness, yeah, um, and that would be fair enough. But in a way, understanding mindfulness, understanding sati, is the fruit of the practice. And I'm sort of like quite careful about when I think I actually understand mindfulness. Yeah. When the kind of sense of discovering the facets of mindfulness, when that spirit of discovery wanes. And I can say honestly, like sometimes I am actually embarrassed about how little I understand of mindfulness, you know? Like what it actually is. What is mindfulness? What is awareness? What is attention? What are these things? I'm like, oh my goodness, what am I doing teaching? Like, I don't know what these things are. This is a kind of like keeps unfolding. And mindfulness, the word, is a kind of pocket into which many things have been put. Yeah. Um, John Kabat-Zinn, in almost exactly a decade ago, summer of 2011, wrote that uh, who's developed mindfulness-based stress reductions, beautiful 8-week program. Many of you know, some of you teach. MBSR was developed as one of a possibly infinite number of skillful means, he writes, for bringing the Dharma into mainstream settings. It's never been about MBSR for its own sake. It's always been about the M, and the M is a very big M. We use the word mindfulness intentionally as an umbrella term to describe our work and to link it explicitly with what I have always considered to be a universal Dharma that is coextensive, if not identical, with the teachings of the Buddha Dharma. Yeah. That word, mindfulness, basically a placeholder for the entirety of the Dharma. Yeah. And so the definitions get muddled. The earliest known translation of sati as mindfulness is something like the 1880s. And the scholars, kind of linguistic scholars about this, have said that it seemed clear that people were not sure how to translate the word sati, and landed on mindfulness. So it has connotations of memory, of holding something in mind, of keeping hold of an object. Yeah. And when we're mindful, we're encoding information, we're capable of remembering it. Yeah. So when we read a page of a novel mindlessly, it's gone. Yeah. Our eyes did move across the words, but there's no or minimal comprehension. Yeah. And so this mindfulness, this quality of holding something in mind, means we're capable of making memory of it. Maybe that's one sense of it. And samadhi, this unified, usually translated as concentration, but unified, energized, fluid, malleable attention, really a kind of ability to attend to whatever we deem as relevant. And sometimes it's defined in the negative, like what's left when the hindrances of greed and aversion, of restlessness and sleepiness, of doubt, when they're not there, what's left is samadhi. So we're talking about attention and we're talking about awareness, and attention is this spotlighting function. It's bringing something into view. I think manasikara is the Pali, bringing something into mind. And then we kind of like brighten the object with attentional light. So, okay, we're focusing on our breathing right here. We bring it into mind. We soak the attention into that. Yeah. We're illuminating those sensations with light. We're so dependent on visual metaphors in this realm. Yeah. And generally concentration deepens, samadhi deepens when the spotlight becomes brighter and brighter and there's zero light escaping. Yeah. Right. Like, in a theater or something like that, it's like that spotlight can have like very sharp lines. Everything inside of it is bright. Nothing outside of it is visible. Yeah. And samadhi feels a little like that. Yeah. The rest of phenomena falls away. The noise, the pain, thought, feeling. It's like just what's illuminated in that spotlight. And it tends to be a kind of energetic state, yeah, and an effortful state, at least for a while. It requires energy. It generates energy. This is not good for sleeping. Yeah, it is activating in a way, and And so concentration, there are differences and similarities, yeah, overlaps. I think the mindfulness often is, sometimes mindfulness, we're talking about directing attention, but sometimes we're referring more to the background field of awareness, yeah? It's like, okay, what happens if I told you to stop, like stop awareness, you couldn't do it. Yeah. Stop being aware. Okay. What we can't stop, we're sort of not, we can't say we're doing it. There's an effortless quality to it. And sometimes mindfulness is associated more with the effortlessness of awareness rather than the effortful direction of attention, that spotlighting function. Samadhi tends to create a stronger sense of seclusion because more and more of phenomena fall away. Um, there's, yeah, it's tends to be very soothing, even really kind of a sense of being healing. Yeah, this like just the attention stabilized because it's soothing. It feels healing because it feels like less and less is changing. Yeah, the Buddha said anicca, impermanence, the relentlessness of samsara, the relentlessness of change. And in a way, when we start to restrict the attention and we just come to rest in this simple way, it feels like life slows down. Yeah. We know that sense of life feeling so fast, getting faster, relentless, and we just want to like turn down the knob on the whole nervous system somehow. And the development of samadhi is one way, yeah, of sort of like developing some sense of refuge, of shelter. Um, the changingness becomes less prominent in experience, and the heart rests. Now, in mindfulness practice, there's more, I think, metacognitive activity. Yeah. So what do I mean by that? Well, some researchers distinguish it this way. So there's metacognitive knowledge, that is knowledge about how the mind works. Yeah. And then there's metacognitive monitoring, that is like tracking one's mental operations. This is pretty close to mindfulness. Yeah. Metacognitive monitoring. We're tracking what's happening in our mind. We have knowledge, we're monitoring, and then the third of metacognitive control, that the results of our monitoring we use to modulate our performance. Yeah. So it's like, oh, I'm monitoring my inner life I'm getting all caught up in this little whirlpool of obsession. Okay, let me redirect the attention somewhere else. This is a kind of metacognitive control, yeah? Mindfulness involves more of this kind of these metacognitive capacities. There's another difference, which is that that samadhi, I think it makes the mind very impressionable. Um, we probably don't have good associations with that word, impressionable. Like I think of you know teen peer pressure or something, and Matthew as a teenager or something, don't be don't be so impressionable or something like that. But there's another side of it, which is that to be impressionable is to be fertile for learning. Yeah. And concentration makes the mind more fertile. Yeah. The lessons, the insights, the understandings, they like make this deeper impression on the heart. And so if I say something like in the context of a retreat, yeah, if we're having a practice discussion, a meeting one-on-one with a practitioner, and I say something to someone who is quite concentrated, I know it will make a deeper impression than if they were scattered. Yeah. And so how deep do insights go? How much are they consolidated in our nervous system? How much of an impression do they make on the mind? It depends in part on the samadhi. Yeah. Depends in part on the samadhi. And when we get still and we're sort of like these malleable clay creatures, when we see something, when we make an observation, when we have an insight, it burns in to us. Yeah. And that's valuable. Yeah. It cuts both ways because it can go the other way too. Yeah. As we know from practice, like sometimes there's just less friction in the mind as the samadhi develops. And so when it goes, it really goes. And where we find ourselves in some pool of pain or something that we can't climb out of. But generally, it's very helpful. And who knows? I mean, it's possible that there's something like kind of enhanced neuroplasticity in the context of concentration, of samadhi. Yeah, that seems to be the case in for exercise. Yeah, that in the kind of immediate aftermath of exercise, there's a different. The learning mechanisms are more malleable, and I do wonder about that with the kinds of cultivation of samadhi that we work on. Concentration is different from mindfulness insofar as concentration, it tends to make the object of meditation more real. It reifies it. It feels more substantial. So when we use the breathing as the object of concentration, we're not trying to notice the dukkha, anicca, anatta, the three characteristics about the breath. Yeah. We're not directing attention in that more metacognitive way. We're not questioning the reality of the breath. We're just giving our attention to it. Whereas as sati, mindfulness, it's like the more we look with that lens, the less and less there is. Yeah. The more that thins out experience. Yeah. Whereas the concentration tends to make it feel more substantial. Yeah. Um, so there's some differences. This saying goes that you don't learn anything in samadhi because you're not perceiving change. And some teachers, the model is develop steadiness of mind, stabilize the telescope, or the spotlight, yeah, and then use that illumination, that stability of the spotlight to perceive more clearly. That's the kind of classic line. But my experience is that it usually unfolds in a messier, less linear kind of way. And yeah, and so there are real overlaps between these constructs. Mindfulness requires some measure of concentration. Otherwise, we're just getting pinged around, but like in one of those old pinball machines, yeah, bouncing off of phenomena. Oh, a memory, feeling in my knee, anticipation, emotion, some other physical sensation. And we're sort of like bouncing. And we all know that experience of like, well, I'm paying attention, but it's too much, And we're kind of glancing off the surface of objects rather than having a sustained soaking, yeah? And the sustained soaking of mindfulness practice, that is a kind of samadhi-like factor, yeah? Where we like really make contact. We really soak into that phenomena. And then maybe we let go and pay attention to something else. But that sense of soaking is that's important for mindfulness not to feel like just overwhelm. So the mindfulness and concentration, they share in non-distractedness. Yeah. There may be different species of focus, but they share in non-distractedness. And our species was not designed for non-distractedness. Yeah. If you haven't noticed yet. Yeah. Um, nervous, hungry little monkeys, and so many movements of body and mind, yeah, can be construed as safety behaviors, as kind of like ritually checking on our security. And yeah, I see a hand. I'll take some questions at the end. We'll leave time for that. So that sense of like, yeah, just when I just look like, okay, what do I get preoccupied with? We're sitting here. I'm paying attention to the what is actually here. What grabs the attention? Yeah. And if we look, it's often it's something bound up with something like at the root, security. Yeah. And there's a model of the brain as a kind of hypothesis testing organ, yeah, like a prediction machine. And it's different from like we have a stimulus and then we respond. We're not exactly reflecting the world as it is. We're like constantly testing hypotheses about now based on what happens next. Yeah. It's like, what is going on? Well, let me see. I think it's this. I have an idea. Let me see what happens next. Yeah. And this model of like just of making and testing predictions and then adjusting based on the error. Yeah. This model is like, it's a model from neuroscience, but it feels, as a meditator, I know where they're coming from. Yeah. Right. That sense of like that kind of forward leaning sort of energy. I was alluding to some of it in the sit, that in a sense our safety is the overriding concern in all of that prognostication, the predictions, the testing. What is this? Is this okay? Is this moment okay? Is this moment likely to be followed by security or threat? Yeah. The brain scientist Kay Tai, she says, fear has an authoritarian command over the rest of the brain. Yeah. Given that, it feels like we're, yeah, given samsara, given the ungovernability of experience, the unimaginable power of the laws of physics, it's like it can feel like we're always supposed to be worrying about something. Yeah. That sense of to let down, maybe even for a moment, to put down the vigilance, yeah, to put down the kind of scanning, that predictive hypothesis generation. Yeah, to put that down can feel, yeah, vulnerable. Like to be present can feel like being very raw. And that kind of thirst to secure our life, that is very understandable but deeply disruptive for our mind. And so this has deep roots, but the place where it's most evident, and maybe the top of the iceberg, is discursive thinking. That's this very sticky phenomena of discursive thinking. And it, of course, like we ought not to be embarrassed by thinking, yeah, that we do have thoughts, and as Michelle McDonald said, like we don't try to get enlightened by clogging our ears with earplugs and putting on blindfold and um, restricting all of the senses. In the same way, we don't try to cut off thinking. Yeah, there's just another sense gate. And it is very sticky. It's very sticky. And in a way, we've come to trust thinking so much, and it's sort of the problem, the kind of the tool we use for all of our problem solving. And thoughts are they're just so prominent in our experience. Yeah. It's like the breathing is so, it can feel so subtle, and it's just like, and then there's the voice, in our mind, and it's just like, wow, it's like exerts a gravitational force. And it almost feels like even the little proto-embryonic kind of thoughts, like before they're fully born, it feels like the experience I have is it's like that little baby thought is just begging me to think them, like please bring me into my glorious existence, and and as we get quiet, we can see that the kind of compulsion to tell stories, yeah, to narrate experience is in the end a compulsion to control and to stay secure. And there can even be a kind of terror in not talking to ourselves about experience, you know, like something happens, especially egoically titillating things, you know, but it kind of anything. And it's like the way we try to integrate it and feel, you know, establish homeostasis or something is like we just talk to ourselves about what's happening. We make sense of it. And the further we get from like a sense of balance or homeostasis, the more desperate we are to talk to ourselves. Yeah. It's like a really deep drive. And we're practicing, these are deep habits, but we're practicing this radical quality of meditation, of surrendering some of this, of putting some of this down, of 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 establishing enough sense of protection, refuge, safety, the precepts. We agree not to harm each other. Okay, okay, maybe it feels like, yeah, safe enough that I can begin to relax some of the vigilance. I can begin to surrender the energy of, as the Buddha said, always becoming something other. Yeah, this becoming. I was alluding to this in the meditation too, of the that sense of like treating each moment as a kind of bartering chip for something else. And so we practice futurelessness. Yeah. Like Thich Nhat Hanh, this is it. This is it. And of course, time, there's karma, there's another moment. Yeah. But we're practicing surrendering into the moment as if it were futureless. Yeah. And so all this is to say that mindfulness, samadhi is a kind of letting go. Yeah, this kind of core theme in Dharma. Yeah, we're temporarily making peace with the imperfection of the human condition, with the ungovernability of the human condition, with the exposure, the rawness, the aliveness, the vulnerability of the human condition. We're making peace with this. And so both sati, samadhi are in this sense a function of non clinging.